spent my entire childhood being treated like I didn't belong, not like I was different, not like I was misunderstood, like I was unwanted. And the worst part? It wasn't strangers who made me feel that way. It was the people who were supposed to be my family. My name is Lily Anderson. I'm 28 years old, and for most of my life, I lived in a house where I was constantly reminded that I was just the extra piece. The leftover, the girl who didn't fit into the picture. My real father passed away when I was very young. I barely remember his voice, but I remember how safe I felt when he held my hand. After he was gone, everything changed. A year later, my mother remarried. That's when my stepfather and his 2 children came into my life. From the outside, we looked like a perfect blended family. A new husband, 2 stepkids, a fresh start. But inside that house, I was never part of it. My stepfather never yelled at me. He never hit me. He didn't need to. The way he looked at me, like I was a burden he was forced to tolerate, said everything. And his kids? They learned from him quickly. They made jokes about me at the dinner table. They excluded me from family photos. They whispered things just loud enough for me to hear. "You're not really one of us." And every time my mother heard it, she stayed silent. I learned very early in life that if I wanted anything, I had to earn it myself. School supplies? I babysat for neighbors. Clothes? I saved every dollar from part-time jobs. College application fees? I worked double shifts. No one helped me. No one offered. And I stopped expecting them to. By the time I turned 18, I had already decided one thing. I would leave that house and never depend on them again. And I did. I moved out with 2 suitcases, a small savings account, and a promise to myself that one day I would build a life where I never had to feel unwanted again. Life wasn't easy. I worked 2 jobs while going to college, waitressing during the day, studying at night. Sometimes I cried myself to sleep from exhaustion, but at least I was free. Years passed. I graduated, built a stable career, got my own apartment, created a life that was peaceful, quiet, mine. And during all those years, my stepfamily barely contacted me. No birthdays, no holidays, no check-ins. It was like I never existed. Then one day, everything changed. I received a call from a lawyer I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but then he said a name I hadn't heard in years. My father's name, my real father. He told me something that made my hands start shaking. Something I never expected. Something no one had ever told me. My father had left something behind for me. Something big. Very big. I sat down because my legs felt weak. I remember staring at the floor as the lawyer spoke, every word echoing in my ears. "Miss Anderson, your father left you a trust." I swallowed hard. "How much?" I asked quietly. There was a brief pause. Then he said it. $3 million. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. $3 million? For me? The girl who grew up feeling like she was worth nothing? Tears filled my eyes. Not because of the money, but because for the first time in my life, I felt like my father had still been there for me, even after he was gone. But I had no idea that this news, and this one single piece of information, was about to change everything, because somehow my stepfamily found out, and suddenly, and the same people who treated me like I didn't belong for years were about to show up in my life again, with smiles, with apologies, with the word they never used before, family. But they didn't know one thing. They didn't know who I had become. They didn't know what I had learned. And they definitely didn't know that I wasn't that unwanted little girl anymore. I was Lily Anderson, and this time, things were going to be very different. The first message came 3 days after I signed the final paperwork for the trust. I was standing in my kitchen, coffee growing cold in my hand, staring at a notification from a number I hadn't saved. I almost ignored it. Almost, but something in my chest told me to open it. So I did. "Hi, Lily. It's Dad. I heard some news about you. I think we should talk. We miss you." I stared at the screen for a long time. Dad. He had never called himself that when I lived under his roof. Back then, it was always my first name. Sometimes not even that. Just a look, a sigh, a dismissive gesture. And now, Dead. I let out a slow breath and placed my phone on the counter. I didn't reply. Not that day, not the next. But the messages kept coming. First from him, then from my stepsister, then my stepbrother. Each one sounding sweeter than the last. Hey Lily, we've been thinking about you so much lately. Family is important. We should reconnect. We were young back then. We made mistakes. I read every message, and every word felt like it had an invisible price tag attached to it. A week later, my mother called. That was the one that shook me, because no matter how much time had passed, a part of me still wanted her to choose me. Just once, I answered. Hello? There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice, soft, careful, almost unfamiliar. Lily, sweetheart, it's Mom. Sweetheart. Another word she had never used when I needed it most. I closed my eyes for a moment before answering. Aye, Mom. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. Oh, I'm so glad you picked up. I was worried you wouldn't. I didn't say anything. I let the silence stretch. Because for years, I had been the one sitting in silence, waiting for her to say something that made me feel like I mattered. Now it was her turn. We heard about your father's trust, she continued gently. I can't believe he did that for you. It's wonderful news. There it was, the reason, not me, the money. I leaned against the counter, my voice steady. Yes, it was a surprise. Another pause. Then she said, We'd really love to see you, Lily. As a family, it's been too long. I almost laughed. Too long? They hadn't called me in years. Not on my birthdays. Not on holidays. Not when I graduated. Not when I moved into my first apartment. But now, suddenly it was too long. I'm busy with work, I replied calmly. Oh, just for dinner, she insisted. This Sunday. Everyone will be there. Your stepfather, your brother, your sister. We all want to make things right. Make things right. Such simple words, but they couldn't erase years of quiet cruelty. Years of being invisible in my own home. Years of learning to survive without them. I'll think about it, I said. It was the safest answer. Not yes, not no. Just enough to end the call. Please do, she said softly. We love you, Lily. I didn't respond. I just ended the call and set my phone down. Because those 3 words came far too late. That night, I sat on my couch with the city lights glowing through my window, replaying everything in my mind. All the memories I tried so hard to forget began to surface again. The empty seat at the dinner table where no one waited for me. The birthdays where I bought my own cake. The cold silence when I packed my bags and left at 18. And now, they wanted dinner. They wanted smiles. They wanted a fresh start. But what they didn't understand was this. I had already built a life without them. A peaceful life, a stable life, a life where I was finally enough. I had friends who cared about me, colleagues who respected me, a home where I felt safe. I didn't need anything from them anymore. Not approval, not love, not validation, and definitely not fake apologies wrapped around a $3 million reason. The next morning, I made my decision. I texted my mother, I'll come to dinner on Sunday. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then her reply, Oh, Lily, that makes me so happy. We can't wait to see you. I stared at her message. Then I typed one more line. Just dinner, nothing more. She didn't reply to that part. Sunday arrived faster than I expected. As I drove toward the house I once called home, my hands were steady on the steering wheel. No shaking, no fear. No longing, just clarity, because this time, I wasn't going there as the unwanted girl who needed their acceptance. I was going there as the woman who had already accepted herself. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. The house looked exactly the same. Same walls, same windows, same front door. But it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place from a past life. A place I had outgrown. I stepped out of the car and walked to the door. Before I could knock, it swung open. My mother stood there with a wide smile and open arms. Lily. She hugged me tightly. Too tightly, like she was trying to make up for years in a single moment. Il est here. But I didn't hug back the same way, because some distances can't be closed that easily. Behind her, I saw them. My stepfather, my stepsister, my stepbrother, all standing there, all smiling, all looking at me like I finally mattered. And in that moment, I understood exactly what this dinner was going to be. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about family. It was about opportunity. I walked inside anyway, because I had something they didn't expect, something they weren't prepared for. And by the time this dinner was over, they were going to realize one thing very clearly. They might want me now, but they had already lost me a long time ago. The moment I stepped into the house, the memories hit me like a wave. The same hallway, the same pictures on the wall, except now, I noticed something I had never paid attention to before. There were photos of everyone, family vacations, birthdays, smiling faces, but not a single picture of me, not one. I didn't say anything, I just kept walking, because I wasn't here to revisit the past. I was here to see who they really were. Now that they knew about the money, the dining table was already set. Plates, glasses, candles. Everything looked perfect, too perfect, like a performance, like they had rehearsed this moment. "Sit here, Lily," my mother said, gently guiding me to a chair at the center of the table. The center, the seat I was never given before. Back then, I sat at the corner, quiet, invisible. Dinner started with small talk, work, weather, random stories. They were trying too hard, laughing at things that weren't funny, agreeing with everything I said, watching me carefully, like I was something valuable they didn't want to lose. And for the first time in my life, I saw them clearly, not as family, but as people with intentions. Halfway through dinner, my stepfather finally spoke directly to me. He cleared his throat, folded his hands on the table, and gave me a look I had never seen before. Warm, respectful, calculated. "Lily," he said, "I just want to say, I'm proud of you." I almost choked on my water. Proud? Of me? This was the same man who once told me I would never succeed without his help. The same man who refused to pay for my school books. The same man who acted like I was a burden in his home. And now, he was proud. "Thank you," I replied calmly. I didn't challenge him. I didn't expose him. I let him continue, because I wanted to hear how far he was willing to go. My stepsister leaned forward next, smiling sweetly. "We've been talking, Lily, and we feel really bad about how things were in the past." My stepbrother nodded quickly. "Yeah, we were young, stupid. We should have treated you better." I watched their faces carefully, their tone, their body language. Everything felt practiced, prepared, like they had all agreed on what to say before I arrived. Then came the moment I was waiting for. My stepfather leaned back in his chair and said the one sentence that revealed everything. "Now that you're in a better financial position, we think it's time for the family to come back together." There it was. Not love, not regret, opportunity. I placed my fork down slowly, took a sip of water, then looked directly at him. "For what purpose?" I asked calmly. The table went quiet. No one expected me to ask that. My stepfather smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. "Well, we're family. We support each other. We help each other grow." I nodded slightly. "Interesting." I paused. Then I asked softly, "Where was that support when I needed help paying for college?" No one answered. I continued, "Where was that support when I worked 2 jobs just to survive?" Still silence. I looked at my mother. "Where was that support when I left this house with 2 suitcases and no one even stopped me?" My mother looked down at her plate. The atmosphere changed instantly. The fake warmth faded. The smiles became tight. The performance was cracking. My stepsister spoke again, her voice a little sharper this time. "That was the past, Lily. Why are you bringing it up now?" I met her gaze calmly. "Because you're bringing up the future." Another silence, heavier this time. Then my stepfather leaned forward again, his tone more direct. "Lily, let's be honest here. You've received a significant amount of money, and as your family, we believe it's only fair that we discuss how it can benefit everyone." There it was, finally. No more pretending, no more acting, just truth. They didn't want me. They wanted what I had. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not pain, clarity, peace, power. I nodded slowly. "I see," I said. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, placed it gently on the table in front of me. All eyes dropped to it immediately. Curious, hopeful, hungry. "What's that?" my stepbrother asked. I looked at each of them one by one. Then I said calmly, "It's the reason I came tonight." I opened the folder slowly, took out a few documents, and slid them across the table toward my stepfather. He picked them up, started reading. At first, his face was neutral, then confused, then shocked. "What is this?" he asked, his voice tightening. I leaned back in my chair. "Calm. Controlled, certain. It's a legal record," I said quietly. "A record of every financial contribution I made to this household before I left." My stepsister frowned. "What are you talking about?" I looked at her. "Every time I paid for my own food, my own clothes, my own school expenses." I paused. "Every time I contributed money to help this house, even though I was a child." Silence. No one moved. I folded my hands on the table and delivered the sentence that changed everything. "You're right." I looked directly at my stepfather. Family supports each other. I leaned forward slightly. "So, before we talk about what I owe you," I held his gaze. "Let's talk about what you owe me." And in that moment, for the first time in my life, they had no power over me. The silence after my words was heavy enough to feel. No one moved. No one spoke. It was like the entire room had frozen in that exact moment. My stepfather was still holding the papers, his hands slightly shaking as his eyes moved across every line, every number, every receipt I had carefully kept over the years, every dollar I earned as a teenager, every contribution I made while they treated me like I didn't belong, every sacrifice they ignored. This is ridiculous," he finally said. But his voice didn't carry the same authority it used to. "Not anymore. Not in front of me." I tilted my head slightly. "Is it?" I asked calmly. He looked up at me, trying to regain control of the situation. "You were living in our house, eating our food. We provided for you." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get emotional. I just answered with the truth. "I paid for my own food after I turned 16. I said. "I bought my own clothes. I paid my own school fees. And I even contributed to your household bills." I paused. Then I added softly, "And I did all of that while being treated like I didn't belong there." My stepsister slammed her hand lightly on the table. "Why are you doing this?" she snapped. "We invited you here to fix things." I looked at her. "No," I said calmly. "You invited me here because you heard about the money." She opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out because she knew I was right. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Lily, please, we're trying to be a family again." I turned to her slowly. "For years," I said quietly, "I begged for a mother." My throat tightened slightly, but I didn't let my voice break. "I needed you to stand up for me, to protect me, to love me." I held her gaze. "You didn't." Tears filled her eyes, but this time, they didn't make me feel guilty. My stepfather suddenly pushed the papers down onto the table. "Fine," he said sharply. "Let's say you did contribute a little money back then. That doesn't compare to what we provided for you over the years." I nodded. "You're right." He looked slightly relieved until I finished my sentence. "So let's compare it." I pulled out another document from my folder, a legal document, stamped, signed, official. I slid it across the table toward him. "This," I said calmly, "is a certified financial report from my attorney." He frowned as he picked it up again. "What is this supposed to prove?" I folded my hands together. "It proves that every basic living expense you claim to have covered was legally your responsibility as a guardian." I leaned slightly forward. "And it also proves that you failed to provide several of those basic responsibilities." The color drained from his face. "You can't be serious," he muttered. "Oh, I am," I replied quietly. I tapped the document gently. "This includes unpaid educational support, neglect of required financial care, and emotional harm documented over several years." My stepbrother leaned forward quickly. "Wait, are you threatening us with a lawsuit?" I met his eyes. "No," I said calmly. "I'm reminding you of the truth." The room felt smaller now. The power dynamic had completely shifted. They weren't the ones in control anymore. I was. My stepfather's voice dropped lower. "What do you want, Lily?" There it was. The real question. Not about family. Not about love. About control. About power. About money. I leaned back in my chair, completely calm. "I don't want anything from you," I said. That answer surprised all of them. My stepsister blinked. Then what is all this for? I looked around the table slowly, at every face that once made me feel small. Invisible. Unwanted. And I spoke with complete clarity. This is closure. Silence. I didn't come here for revenge, I continued. I came here so that for the first time in my life, you would hear me. I placed my hand gently on the folder and understand that I was never nothing. My mother started crying softly. I'm sorry, Lily, she whispered. I should have done more. I should have protected you. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt distance. I needed that version of you years ago, I said gently, but I learned to survive without it. My stepfather stared at me, his jaw tight. So what now? He asked. I stood up slowly from my chair, straightened my posture, and looked at him one last time. Now, I said calmly, we go our separate ways. My stepsister's eyes widened. Wait, you're just going to walk away? I gave a small, peaceful nod. Yes. My stepbrother spoke again, his voice more desperate now. But we're family. I stopped him with one sentence. Family doesn't show up only when money arrives. No one had anything left to say after that. I picked up my bag, closed the folder, and walked toward the door. Each step felt lighter, freer, like I was finally leaving that house for the last time. Not as the unwanted girl, but as the woman who chose herself. As I reached the door, my mother called out softly behind me. Lily, please, can we at least stay in touch? I paused, my hand resting on the doorknob. I didn't turn around immediately.